Hey, welcome back everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm AmusedJester. My name is Junior, and yes, we are going to be looking at some comic books today. Now, it's not going to be very much longer that I'm going to be stopping with the comic books because um, I've only got two coming in right now. But this is basically a few things that I'm just kind of doing for these new comic books, new old comic books that I've gotten, and that's basically rebagging them. So one of the things that I started looking into is the type of bags that I wanted to use for the comic books. Now, there's the usual poly bags that I have always been familiar with, comic poly bags and cardboard, which is basically something like this, right? But what I've noticed is there's even with the newest poly bags, there's always going to be waviness and everything. What in one of the purchases that I made, one of the old ones, I came across this really pretty thick, not pretty thick, but thicker than usual, and then I didn't see any kind of waviness, and I looked at it, and what I found out is what they're called mylar. So this is a mylights 2 millimeters, and they seem not. I'm not sure if it's clearer, but definitely, as you can see, they don't have that waviness. So this is one of the comic books that I just came in right now. See how much more different that is compared to a poly bag. But this, it happens to be, I believe, 50 cents 50 cents each. So for 50, I paid like 25 bucks. So a lot more expensive because poly bags for $10 you can get 100. Definitely much more expensive, right? But for special ones, I'm gonna put it in my lights. Now the other thing that I'm thinking of is on top of my lights, I would put it on these top loaders. They're, I believe, 20 for $10. I can't remember, but they're not like a higher up, but definitely a lot more expensive. And as you can see, it does dim down the comic book. It's kind of a lot more less transparent than the other one, and it has this really weird darkening effect, and it's not perfectly clear on everything. This is the bag that I showed you guys that it barely held and everything. One of the things I started looking into is these replicas, reprints. These are from Loot Crate, so they don't have, unlike the newer ones, where it has the updated pricing of $3.99, $6.99, whatever. This is basically exactly as it looked on the original, except it shrunk down. I think I showed it to you. I showed this to you guys on the previous one. I can't remember. And then the one last upgrade that I've been tinkering with, and I showed you this, was these magnetic kind of slabs that you can reopen and everything. So it's not permanently affixed inside. But these are really expensive. These are $10 and up each, like $10, $50, or $11. So I only have 10 of these. So these, I initially put these ones that are kind of good looking and everything, but I'm gonna remove and replace some of them because I want to put these in this, and I'm gonna actually, let me put this in the new one. And I'm not gonna use a board with this one. I want to put it inside of my light, and I'll be right back. I want to add that mylars are a lot more thicker than poly bags, or the usual poly bags. And I have to keep in mind that these are older comic books. As you can see, some of the edges are tearing and everything. So I want to make sure that these do not catch on the edge of these mylar bags, because they might end up ripping it. So, and they're quite tight for these Silver Age books. Now there are different sizes for mylars. regular modern comic books and Silver Age sized, but I believe I just went with a regular size, and it's a nice tight snug fit, and I'm not gonna be using bagger board or anything. As you saw, I also put it upside down. I used to put these covers up here, but I decided to kind of change it up and this everything. Now I am just using a regular Scotch tape. I know how dangerous it is, so I'm just gonna be very, very careful when if I ever decide to take this off. But the nice thing about the Mylar is because it is thicker, it should be easier to take off. You almost can't see it, as you can see. But look, just so much more clearer and everything. So about these two comic books, ever since I read the Crisis on Infinite Earths, wherein DC finally resolved their dilemma about multiple Earths and confusing storylines and destroyed them. The first time I saw the Crime Syndicate, I've always been fascinated by that group. Imagine an evil version of the Justice League. But I always thought that that group, because I wasn't really that. This is actually Crisis on Infinite Earths was the first time I've ever been introduced to the possibility of multiple Earths. So, in my young mind, I was still like, yeah, that's kind of a strange idea. So I always thought that the Crime Syndicate was created during the Crisis on Infinite Earths and killed off in that one. I never knew that there was an actual comic book issues dedicated to their stories, which all, of course, that makes sense, right? Because Crisis of Infinite Earths was created to kill off those multiple Earths. But when I was younger, I could almost think or believe that Crisis on Infinite Earths was kind of my introduction to DC Comics. I mean, not DC characters because that's Super Friends, but DC Comics in general. Um, I remember buying Crisis on Infinite Earths issues in the Philippines, and they were like really, really in the forefront of my memory in terms of reading comic books. So the idea that they're destroying these multiple Earths, I thought it was just a plot line. I never realized, I didn't know at the time that it was DC's answer to destroying or like coalescing all these DC history into just one Earth. I never realized that. So I didn't know about the Justice Society of America. I didn't know about the Crime Syndicate and all that stuff. I didn't know about the older Jay Garrick Flash. I didn't know about Alan Scott. The Green Lantern that I knew of was Hal Jordan. So that's why I always thought the Crime Syndicate was created during Crisis on Infinite Earths. Imagine my surprise a few weeks ago that it was just the forefront of my mind this past 40 years that there really was a few issues dedicated to the Crime Syndicate of America. So when I did, and I was very, very lucky that these two issues happened to be on eBay, and I bought them for a total of $40 for both. I believe this is 25 and this is 15. So even though, as you can see from the first one, issue number 29, it's not, there's got damage over here, there's a rip over here, there's a rip over there. Maybe I'll upgrade this someday. There's a rip over there. But for $25, I don't care. This is kind of like me holding it in history and everything. So, having said that, now I'm going, since I only have a few of these slabs, I have to try and determine which of them I will take off and replace. This one I'm not that sold on. It was great because it has the Golden Age Superman. That was the reason why I bought this comic book. But definitely it's gonna get replaced, and I will put this in here. It doesn't completely fit this Mylar. No. The comic book does, but not the Mylar. Well, technically, I don't need this comic book in the Mylar. Oh, jeez. I just taped it. Let me remove it. Okay, I got to tape off. It's actually easier with the Mylar. Maybe it's because it's brand new, but because of the thicker Mylar, it was easier to remove the tape. I really wanted to keep it in the Mylar because this one is slightly bent, and this one as well, and I wanted to use the Mylar as to press it down, but since it doesn't fit, I'm forced to remove it and put it somewhat raw into the slab because I definitely want this in the slab. As you can see, it's slightly lifting over here because that's the one. Just got to be careful putting this in so that I press on there. As you can see, it's still loose and it plays around, but I'm okay. Now that is completely safe. Yeah, I wanted to put it in the Mylar, but I'm okay. The important thing is I'm able to slab it. And I have an empty one over here where I'm going to put this one in. Hold on a second. All right, so yeah, I mean, look at how easy it is to remove this magnetic things. That's why it's $10, but they're like really, really nice. So I'm in this, for these type of comics, Silver Age, very, I guess I wouldn't say historical, but valuable to me. It's worth it just to have them in case like this. I wish this was ultraviolet protected, but I don't think it is. But it's nice enough to do it like that. I put this one in the Mylar, and so what I'm going to do is these Silver Age comic books that I purchased. I know it's only like $3 or so, I believe, when I bought it. I'll put it in the Mylar without the backing because then I'm gonna put it in the top loader. The top loader is about as strong as a cardboard. And the reason why is I kind of want to see the back sometimes. I don't know why. This way at least I get 2 pages benefits of the comic book. This, I wonder if I should, oh yeah, I should fix this right here because it's not completely centered. I'll be right back. Now, I am not a comic book conservationist. I'm sure there are better ways to properly press a comic book rather than what I just did. Basically what I did was just basically roll it by hand, being very, very careful. I'm kind of hoping that by pressing it inside the slab, it will refold itself to a much more natural position. As you can see, the edge on this one is a lot better, and this is a lot more closer to the edge. But of course, by rolling it by hand, you kind of are stressing the paper. And but once I put it in the slab, I'm hoping it will press itself to its proper form. Oh, I forgot, this is not going to a slab, this is going to this one. This is tight though, so I'm hoping it will press it together. So this is not really a key issue. I wasn't hunting for this issue. It was just part of the lot. And as you can see, I went from underneath, which kind of works for me because this is a top loader, so that when I load it in, it doesn't snag the top. But I'm really hoping that this, by pressing on this will allow it to become a more natural look. This one, it's not as bad. I feel like I think this was actually stapled the way it is, so that's fine for me. And then let me look at some other stuff. So I've transferred this one to a top loader using a Mylar bag. I feel like that's safe enough. So I'm gonna, like, this is with a cardboard, this is with a Mylar, or the top loader. It feels protected in the same way, so I'm gonna be okay with that. And one of the last purchases, comic books that I was waiting for, came in the mail just right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that up. I have one more coming in, and it's a first appearance book. But let me go ahead and open this up, and we'll put it in a slab. This is very rough. This has a detached cover, so the moment I release this from this one, it's gonna come off. But this is the first crossover pairing of the Justice Society of America with the Justice League of America. So this one, I definitely need to be very, very careful. The problem is now I know I can't fit a Mylar bag inside one of these top loaders, and I definitely want to put this in a Mylar for more protection. Hold on a second. So what I don't understand is, putting them side by side, the Mylar is about the same size as this one, and yet this one actually goes in here. Oh, you know what it is? It's because the poly bag is thinner. It's basically just bending to fit within the top loader, while the Mylar, being thicker, won't bend as easily. That's what it is. Who would have thought? Alright, so in this case, I do have a BCW newer poly bag. I want to transfer this out of this one because it's really old. You can see those waviness. That's an old poly bag. And I do want to take it out of the cardboard. So I think I've said before how dangerous these things are. So being very, very careful. One of the new things I've learned or thought of is to just bend over the tape and tape it on the backing itself, so there's no way this is gonna touch the comic book. Now, I said this has a detached cover, and I knew about it. The seller was very, very upfront about it, so I'm not upset or anything like that. This is the cheapest issue of these that I can get or I can afford. So this is $22. Like I said, I'm not a conservationist and everything, but I do want to fold this back when I put it in the poly bag. So just using an X-Acto knife to slowly pull it back in or pull it back out, so that when I put it in the poly bag, it will straighten up. But as you can see how, oh yeah, there you go, see? It's completely detached from the cover. That'll just make it easier for me to go ahead and somewhat push this down. This thing has been bent like that for the longest time. And the comic book that owned this was just way too afraid to touch it and deal with it. But honestly, I'm not here to get rich. This is not an investment for me. I wanted to have these comics, the ones that I'm actively searching out for, not like the lot buys. Because for me, it's kind of like a connection to a sense of DC history, and DC is very, very important to me because that's my brand. It's I love Marvel because there, of course, you have Captain America, Spider-Man, Hulk, Thor, and everything. But DC, I'm a DC guy. I really am. All right, so and just basically just try to match this as much as I can. And the problem now is, how do I put this back into a poly bag safely? I'll be right back because I got to be careful with this step. All right, so just like that, it's done. I was expecting it to be a little bit more firmer because I was messing around with the Mylars. And going back to the poly bag, it definitely does feel weirder. But as you can see, with just simple, being very careful and just aligning it properly, it's a lot less disconcerting. I was able to slightly, slowly, carefully put it in the bag. And now this is now complete and everything. So now I will put it inside one of these slabs and it will be forever protected. These comic books, they're, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be one of the very last owners. This will stay with me for the rest of my life. I'm not selling any of these, so yeah, I'm glad to own this one. Having said that, I'm almost done. I'm not going to go through everything. So what's going to happen is I have a total of 12 of these. I know for sure that some of them are already closed off. I'm going to use the fact that I only have 12 of these to determine that that when I buy these important issues to me, that I'm going to stop with the 12. And I might expand later on, but for now, I want to finish off with 12, take a break. So I showed you the 2 issues of the Justice Society, or the Crime Syndicate, first appearance. This is the first pairing of the JSA and the Justice League of America. I didn't show this to you guys, but this is the second part. So now this is a 2-part storyline. I have both of them now. So I'm very, very glad. So that's it. I have one more coming in, like I said. That's the first appearance of Parasite. I'm not going to show it. This is pretty much done for now for me, for comic books. And I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a break from spending and just finish off my reviews from the toys that I still have. Thank you so much for sticking with me about these comic books. I love comic books, obviously. I love toys. But my love for toys came from my love of these characters, these comic books. And my love of comic books started with DC Comics. So that's why what you're seeing are all DC Comics. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys in my next review. Bye.